Hey everyone, welcome back to City Skylines and the wonderful city of Douglas. My name is James, and today I've got some exciting stuff planned for you guys. And most importantly, today I am going to reveal to you my master plan for the city. Now, you've seen hints of it with our diagonal avenues and our roundabouts and this vague square shape that we built a couple episodes ago. But I've had some more ideas brewing, and today we're going to set something up that I think will really tie the city together and really make it, the planned city concept that I was going for. And to give you a little hint, the thumbnail's a little hint, but it will also involve this empty tile over here that I was saying we would fill out today. But before we get to all that, we've got a couple other things to take care of in this episode, and firstly I will do my usual brief recap of the last episode. So last time we built this gigantic train station, well, really just plopped it, it's one building, but we built the rail yard attached to it, including all of these tracks and platforms, as well as this freight yard here and the freight station and this maintenance yard. It's all looking a little empty right now. I will put down, you probably won't see me do it, but I will put down some props. I thought I had them installed last episode, but I didn't. They were actually in a separate workshop file, so I'll get that taken care of today, because it is looking a little empty. And then aside from that, we built a bunch of new bridges and tunnels to connect across this rail yard without any level crossings, which is pretty important because it does already see a lot of use, but will see even more use in the future. And then moving away from the rail corridor, we reconfigured this highway up to about here, so it now leads, instead of leading into Old Main Street, it leads into this national road over here, and we will continue it that way in the future. As I was saying, there are some this intersection doesn't really work great. I have it set up as a four-way stop right now. Maybe a traffic light would be better. I kind of left it this way because it's kind of at the edge of the city, and it just feels to me like it should not have as much infrastructure, but we'll have to see how that goes. I do like these new interchanges here. They're really smooth. We're a little constrained for space, but we have all of this area opened up to us now where the highway was previously, and we're going to make use of that today. The first thing we're going to be doing in this episode is adding a couple of new schools, and I think what we're actually going to do is add a couple of new high schools. Now, if you'll remember, a couple episodes ago, I think it was in episode 3, maybe, I said that we intentionally don't have very much high school capacity right now. In fact, if we look, we can see that we only have one high school, and it has a capacity of 580 students. And right now, there are currently over 2,000 students eligible for high school. Now, that number has gone up because more people have been graduating from elementary schools. And as you can see, our elementary school availability is pretty good. We actually have some room to grow. I made sure of that in episode 3. Because I knew it'd be important. And the reason I had neglected high schools up to this point is because the industrial jobs tend to not require the well-educated workers, or as many of them. See, most of the jobs here are educated or uneducated. And this one is a level 2, so you'll see it requires more of the educated one. If we look at a level 1, you'll see they mostly require... is this saying that it... Yeah, I think that actually has less educated people than needs. Okay, this one's a level 1. You can see most of the jobs are uneducated. So with our sort of low-level industry, which is where the majority of our jobs are right now, we don't really need those high schools. And in fact, those high schools aren't helping because they result in people having jobs that they're overqualified for. Now, we want to transition away from an industrial economy, not because industrial economy is necessarily bad, but because the city that we're basing this city off of does not have an industrial economy. So if we want our city to end up looking like, kind of like DC or other cities in that vein, it's a lot more office and commercial oriented as opposed to industry. Of course, there will always be some industry, but especially as we get towards the level 3 industry, and then definitely with offices and even a lot of these commercial shops you'll see that they require these well-educated workers and educated workers. These ones in particular, you can see that they need, in fact, highly educated workers as well, which we won't get today, but we will get later on. Those need a university. But there's definitely a need, even right now, but definitely going forward, for more high schools. And so building them now will let those citizens be able to graduate by the time that we need them to be working. And that might be next episode. It might even be by the end of this episode. We'll just kind of have to see and play it by ear. But I'm going to go ahead and put these down. I'll do a little time lapse. I don't think it'll take too long. I'm going to build one right here in this area because it's already next to these fields in the elementary school. And then I'm going to do one, I think, over in this area, possibly here. But this area is not going to stay residential long term, so I think I'm going to move it over this way, and we'll sort of extend some roads here as we do that. All right, so I'm going to do this, and yeah, be back in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. It's the next morning. I did a couple things overnight, which we'll touch on. But now that we're just coming up on rush hour, I think it's a good time to do a deep dive into our transit network as it currently exists here in the city of Douglas. So the main mod that I'm using to control various aspects of my bus and streetcar lines is this one called Transport Lines Manager. And I actually just started using this. I was previously using Improved Public Transport, which I think is maybe a more popular mod, but they are incompatible. And this one has some important features that are useful for how we're playing. So I want to be clear that I'll try to make it obvious or say whenever I'm talking about something that doesn't apply to vanilla or doesn't apply to an unmodded game. Because a lot of what we set up here is designed for using the real-time mod, which basically adds rush hour. And as you'll notice down here in the bottom, the time is progressing very slowly. And that's kind of important if you want to use stuff like these time traffic lights. Otherwise, they tend to, you can't really push a lot of people through, right? So if all of your citizens are trying to commute during rush hour, it's going to take them actually like 5 or 6 hours to actually get to where they're going. And that kind of, I don't know, that's not really what I wanted to do. And plus, slowing the game down like this makes it a little easier on the computer and also gives me more time during the days to work on things and record stuff for episodes, which has become kind of an issue. So hopefully that'll help with that. Now, as you can see here, we've got 3 bus lines and 5 tram lines. And they're all kind of set at various budget levels. Actually, all the buses are at the sort of the standard, and the trams, you may be thinking, okay, why is it 150%? Why is this one at 70%? So let's look at tram line 1 here. And I wish I could highlight where this goes on the map. Okay, so we'll have to go this way. I wish I could just look at tramline 1. So tramline 1 goes from up here, down this way, through this junction, down, Pennsylvania Avenue, and then comes down here and terminates here. And this was the first line that we built, streetcar line that we built. Line 2 goes down New York Avenue here and terminates over here. Line 3 and 4 form this loop here. They're not very heavily used. I may reconfigure them later on and make it not a loop anymore. I'm not entirely sure if we want to do that, but there's basically one line that goes clockwise and one that goes counterclockwise. So it is a proper loop. They do just sort of go in a circle. And then line 5, it goes from up here all the way down here past the train station and then terminates over here at this loop. So I am using loops. I know there's a mod out there that like adds some kind of reversible tram AI. It'd be kind of cool to play with that, but for now, I've kind of always built these using loops because the game as it is, can't handle the streetcars reversing. So I'm just working with the loops. I don't really know if that's period accurate or not. I think it sort of varied from place to place. It's kind of fun to work the loops in various places and build your lines around that. So that's kind of what I did. That is the structure of our streetcar network. It is I'm kind of trying to form a grid with it, right? You can see maybe a missing part of the grid would be along here. That's eventually actually going to be part of a metro line, which is why I haven't built a streetcar line there. Of course, we could still do it and then replace it later with a metro line. Maybe also over here. Kind of what I'm trying to do is currently a lot of our jobs are industrial. So, and this is something you always want to look for with your transit lines is what is the purpose, right? What is it doing? What people is it serving? So these lines are designed to bring people from residential areas over here and around here and over here down into this area and this area. And then we also are trying to connect major destinations, right? Currently, the train station is a huge destination. We've got a lot of people coming from the train station and going to the train station. And obviously, the people coming don't have cars, so it's nice to have, the streetcar lines funnel through here, and we have pretty much all of our lines, except for line 1, are accessible from either these 2 stops here or this stop here. And then we've also got these parks relatively close to line 1 here, and also line 5 comes through here, this end of the park, and over here. Those are also destinations, and then the schools as well. So this high school, elementary school complex is served by a streetcar line and a bus line. This one is not really that close. It's sort of walking distance to this stop, I guess. And then this one here we just have served by a bus line because it's kind of in the middle of the neighborhood. And that leads me to our bus network, actually. So we've got 3 bus lines at the moment. We've got one that runs in an L shape from over here in this neighborhood down past this school, elementary school, high school complex, and then connects to this roundabout with transfers to these streetcar lines. Our next bus line is over here around this school complex. I kind of have them a little bit set up like school bus routes. They're not actually using school buses, but that's kind of what they're pretending to be. So we've got a connection here with this interchange, and then comes around here and terminates over here. And we could eventually extend this further that way. And then the third bus line comes down this avenue here. I don't remember which one that is. I think it's Massachusetts Avenue. But anyway, one end of it is over here at this park, goes through here, transferred to the tram line 1 there, comes down the avenue, further transfers here at the station, and then to the school complex here. And with my bus lines, they're not exactly running, kind of on the same street, right? Like here I've got it spaced out by a block. And one thing you want to avoid for sure with bus lines, this is something that happens in real life a lot, is you don't want to make loops that only go in one direction, right? So if you're making a full loop where, the sides of the loop are not next to each other, like we have with tram lines 3 and 4 down here, you want to have both a clockwise loop section and a counterclockwise loop section. So really 2 lines. And that's true for buses as well. Now, if you're keeping it sort of a block apart, that can help you get more coverage without it becoming too much of an issue. But you want to ensure that regardless of which direction people are going, they don't have to sit for the whole length of the route until they finally get back to where they're going. So that's just a tip on how I design my bus lines. And then another thing you want to keep in mind is your station spacing. So one thing that's nice about this Transport Lines Manager mod, when you're building a line, it will tell you the stop spacing. And you can see here, these stops are pretty close. You want to be careful about making your stops too close together, right? Especially in the game. Because in the game, the Sims will try to just take a bus instead of walking, even if they really should be walking because the distance is pretty short. So you want to be, around 500 meters, 400 to 500 meters, I would say, for bus stops. A little further for, bus and streetcar station spacing can be relatively similar, right? So here we've got 500 meters station spacing, roughly. And I tried to be pretty consistent with that on all of the lines. So yeah, 500, 600 meter station spacing. And it works pretty well, I think. You do see some crowding, station crowding, but the way you can help manage that is with Headways, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then for a metro system, you want to go even farther. So 500 to 1,000 meter station spacing would be a pretty realistic approach. And then for something like a regional rail line or a commuter rail line, you can go even farther apart than that. And if you're curious on how maybe you don't have the mod, how do you know what the station spacing is roughly? So each one of these squares, these tiles that you unlock, is 2 kilometers to a side. So 2,000 meters by 2,000 meters. So you can kind of estimate, we can look here and say, all right, our train station is, it's about 3/4 of the way through this tile, right? So to go from here to here, I can look at that and eyeball it and say, okay, that's about 1.5 kilometers, right? So maybe there will be 2 stops in between there, right? So you have a stop here, and then the stop here. So that's just kind of how you can eyeball those things, you know, from a top-down view if you don't want to measure it all out. I don't know what is going on with the water right now. It's been doing this. It doesn't seem to really be an issue. We definitely have tons of water capacity. I think this is really sort of, the pump stations are too far from where it's trying to serve. That's never been an issue for me in games before, but it could be, you know, some mod interaction, game speed, something like that, causing it to be a bit wonky. All right, so now let's talk about headways. And my headways are kind of all messed up right now because these vehicles are not unbunching. That's another mod I have that I might have to get rid of that because, yeah, the bunching can be kind of an issue. Right now, our lines are in rush hour mode. That's why you see 150% budget right there. So this mod allows you to set budget for a specific hour of the day. And if you're playing vanilla or playing without the real-time mod, this is completely irrelevant. The game does not have rush hour. You have pretty much the same demand all the time. The day-night cycle is just aesthetic as far as I know. But if you're using the real-time mod, you need to focus your services during rush hour because that's where most of your commuting happens. So right now we're running at 150% budget, which gives us 18 vehicles, and that gives us about 3-minute headways. Now that's 3 minutes of game time, right? So that's not 3 minutes real time. It's less than 3 minutes real time. But 3 minutes headway is a pretty good value, I think. You know, relatively realistic given the size of these vehicles. They're not very big, 45 passengers per streetcar. That's not a whole lot of capacity. So even with that very short headway, you know, a tram just every few minutes, you know, it's not an outrageous amount of capacity, right? If we want larger capacity, we're going to have to build a metro station later on. So you can see, if we were to sit here and watch, you know, the next line 5 tram should come at about 7:32 or 33, right? And I don't know if it's going to be exactly that because they've been having some bunching issues. And of course, if your streetcars are getting stuck in traffic, it's going to mess with their headways. I really wish that there was a way to, you know, budget for a specific headway, right? Rather than a number of vehicles. But I guess it is a little more realistic to say, okay, we're going to have and pay for this many vehicles, and that's going to get us this headway, right? So as it is now, the way you have to do it is literally just sit and watch and say, okay, you know, this one came by at 7:31. When does the next one come by? And see if that's the right interval. You can see there's a whole bunch of here piled up here because they're supposed to be unbunching from each other, but they only do it at one spot on the route. So yeah, see, there's the next one coming up. So right now it might actually be a lower than 3 minute headway, so I might have to mess with it a little more. It might be too high right now. And then the off-peak headway is longer than that, so it's somewhere around 7 minutes if it's, you know, half the funding level, that sort of thing. Now, one other thing that we can do here, right now all of our streetcars are originating from this depot, just the vanilla streetcar depot. We have 61 of them in use right now. Now, one thing we can do with this mod is actually set a specific depot to use for each line. Right now it's unspecified, so just use this one. But, for instance, if we build another depot, and I'll have to see here, I downloaded a car barn asset, but I'm not sure if it's actually a functional tram depot. So we can get other tram depots, and for instance, we could put one up here at this end of the line. And then rather than streetcars having to come all the way down this way, they could start up here. It's kind of the same deal, because this one's already at the end of a line. Realistically, this tram depot is pretty well located. All of our lines reach it except for line 5. So actually, it would be beneficial to place a depot maybe right around here somewhere, or even over here, and have it service line 5. So let me see if I can find that car barn here. Yeah, so this is just a ploppable building. It's not actually a depot, which is unfortunate because I don't really want to. I don't think we realistically need, yeah, a whole nother depot. Seems excessive. Although thinking about it, you want to have enough space where you could realistically store all of the streetcars that you're using. So if we're using 60 right now, could 60 streetcars park in this building and then also have maintenance? Probably not, right? So we need some kind of tram yard somewhere. Yeah, so that's our system right now. We have 5 lines. Line 5 line 5 has way too many vehicles on it, I think, right now. Line 1 is about right. That's the one I actually checked the headways for. And you can see that it's quite profitable right now as well. Some of these lines are not really super profitable, 3 and 4, for instance. That's why I'm thinking maybe we should rework those. Line 2 is pretty short. It does see use, during rush hour, but the bulk of our passengers are coming from line 1 and line 5. Line 5 mainly because it runs right past the rail station. And then our bus routes here, getting some good use out of these. I kind of tried to design the bus routes so they would service areas that the trams are missing. And then also hit the schools, kind of acting like school buses in a way. And speaking of, I guess we can check and see how our education capacity is doing now that we've added these new schools. So on elementaries, we're right around the line, and then high school, we're still a little bit deficient. But I think we're in a better place at the moment. So we're definitely getting a larger share of educated and well-educated residents moving through. We don't have any highly educated yet, although I believe we should be getting some because I changed a mod setting. So now we should be getting citizens of random education levels moving in, which is a little bit more realistic in my opinion. Although we will build a university soon, probably next episode is when we'll do that. I think I'll locate it up here potentially. Not entirely set on the location. But now that we've covered our transit system in a little more depth, and there will be more expansions coming, but I just kind of wanted to explain the current state of the network and why it's designed the way it is. We're using these arterials pretty heavily on that network. And later in the episode, once I've explained our master plan a bit more, it'll make a bit more sense how we can structure the streetcar network going forward, especially knowing how we're going to structure our metro system that will complement it. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about the master plan for the city of Douglas. So one thing that I have been noticing is that we don't really have a sort of central area. We've kind of got this area here, which maybe seems like the center, but I would like a more defined focal point, if you will. So I'm thinking what we'll do is set up a hub and spoke model. And the hub will be this roundabout here, which is going to look quite a bit different when we're done with it. And the spokes will be radiating out in each direction. Some of those will form our avenues. And then we'll have avenues that cross those spokes, and then avenues that kind of form some ring roads around the outside. So we are still going to be able to do the multipolar city that I talked about previously, because those other districts like this would be considered a pole, basically, right, where the train station is. And then if we have an area where we're allowing some taller skyscraper-like buildings, that could be another pole, and so on. The airport area, if we have an industrial park there, that sort of thing. But I like the idea of having a central area where we can place a large monument, potentially like a Capitol building. Let's see here. Yeah, this one here. So there is an asset for the U.S. Capitol. We could use that. It does require us to get a 50% unemployment rate. So maybe we can work on that this episode. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up based on some drawings that I've made. And then we'll hop back in afterwards and start zoning it. And here it is. This is the master plan. So we've got this big central ring with roads coming out of it at various angles. There's 12 of them in total. And I thought this would be cool to have as like a focal point. We can put some big building here, you know, possibly that Capitol building if we can get it unlocked. That may be a bit challenging. I could, of course, always resort to unlocking it with a mod or something, but we'll see if we can get up to 50% unemployment. That might be difficult. But anyway, this will be a majority sort of office district over here. That's why it's not really, you know, nothing zoned in here right now. We probably won't get to zoning anything here yet. We don't really have any office demand. We don't really have the education levels necessary for that yet. So we will build a university to take care of that later on. And then we've also got these smaller circles here. This one is actually set up like a roundabout. It's also a bit weirdly shaped. I noticed that you can't use the this tool. I always thought this tool made parts of a circle, but it doesn't. So I had to kind of fiddle with that. It looks weird if you try to make it too big. But anyway, this one just going to be a park. And then this one over here, same thing, just going to do it as a park, I think. So it's got a nice statue of a dude with a coin behind him. I think this is the Wealth Plaza. Seems fitting in that spot. And then we've got room in here for some more high density residential. We'll fill that in here in a sec. And then this road now feeds in kind of this way. So leaving this open, I think we probably will pull a tram connection through here at some point. Not entirely sure how that's going to work. We will have a subway line that goes from here down this way and then towards the center here. So basically what we've done is this is the middle, right? And then we've kind of got one ring road forming here around the mall and then around this way, continue. And then we've got another ring a bit further out, right? That'll go around this way. So the inner ring will kind of be the tram ring, I'm thinking, the streetcar service along there, and then the outer ring will have a metro line underneath, and then even further out there'll be a beltway, highway, of course. You can't build a DC themed city without having a beltway, right? So that'll go way out here at the edges of the suburban fringe, kind of. And who knows if we'll be able to fill everything in up to there before hitting the building limit. I'm doubtful of that, but we can try, of course. And then filling in this central area, probably also a lot of park space. Paris vibe is kind of what inspired this, especially with the wide medians here. And of course, we want to have a lot of trees in this road. This road here, I may be thinking like this is totally a stroad, right? And yeah, it definitely is. At this point in time, though, I think it kind of makes sense. It's never really going to be busy. Well, especially right now, there's not going to be, like if I were to unpause, there's a few cars using this to get over to this highway. But even when this is full of buildings, I don't really think it'll be full of traffic. Speed limits are low, but this is an interesting road here. This is part of this big roads pack, and it's a continuous median. So when it's smaller intersections that don't have traffic lights, it sets up this continuous median. This is just cosmetic, so you've got to set it up. This was supposed to be set up. Must have lost that. Hold on a second. Okay, all those ones are still there. Oh, I must have done this. I had a session that I lost some save data because I wasn't able to save. I must have been doing this in that. Anyway, just to kind of keep things to the main intersection. So this one is obviously not a roundabout. The inner road here does function like a roundabout. I don't really know which one traffic uses. It seems like they use the outer one. I think that's because of the speed limit difference, which is kind of what we want. So, there are lights everywhere in here. But yeah, some of the roads will be minor, and then the major roads kind of coming out like that. And this will continue off that way. This will continue over there. This will go over here. I'm thinking in this area, we will set up a kind of CBD-like area, sort of like Rosslyn in the DC area. Also kind of like La Défense in Paris, where there will be taller buildings, some skyscrapers and stuff going on. I think it'll be cool to have an area like that. So that's what I'm thinking for this area here, with this river coming out. And, it is right next to the highway as well, which I think would be fitting for that kind of area. So in terms of lore, right, still not set on whether this is going to be a national capital. I think definitely we can say it's like a state capital, and maybe it's a new state that kind of doesn't exist in our timeline. We can call it Chesapeake or something, maybe. It would be fitting. And of course, in this timeline, Maryland does not exist. Maryland has been destroyed, so that's very important to keep in mind. And we can sort of play with that more, sort of looking around in the workshop, what kind of monuments and unique buildings can we find and put them in and spruce things up in this area. It's going to take a lot of buildings to fill this in. I'm realizing that now. I thought I had some, ready to go, but I don't have nearly as many as I thought. So definitely going to have to work on that. Okay, so I did plop a few residential buildings, but I didn't have nearly as many ready to go as I thought I did. So instead I decided to make a little time lapse of this new neighborhood in the northwest part of the city. So previously this area, if you'll recall, was suburban, and we actually had some farms going out this way. But now that we've established the center of the city much closer, this area is going to be part of the city proper. And density-wise, for right now, it'll fit in between our row house / brownstone neighborhoods and our streetcar suburbs. And I actually set up a new building theme based around low density residential, but we're using a mix of attached homes and detached homes, in contrast to the streetcar suburbs, which are primarily detached with some duplexes, since they are intended to sit much farther out from the city center. So here you'll see a mix of narrow detached homes, row houses, duplexes, and low-rise apartments, inspired by those found in Chicago, Richmond, San Francisco, and elsewhere. And as usual, the creators on the Steam Workshop came in clutch with these assets, so shout out to all of them. And in terms of regional accuracy, I think this neighborhood will fit in perfectly, and in fact, it's the closest mix of buildings that I've found to the neighborhood where I live in DC, which is mostly attached two-story row houses with some detached homes, apartments, and townhomes. So anyway, I am excited to see this neighborhood shape up, so enjoy the time lapse. Alright, so you just saw it there. We got the milestone for unlocking Capital City. Population of 30,000. We'd been waiting on that one for a while. And importantly, this is going to unlock us a new area. So right away, I'm thinking it makes sense, given our current development pattern, to pick up this one here. And originally, I was thinking maybe we'd do this one. But with the way we're developing, we can go over here, and potentially our water treatment plant could go actually up here somewhere. Could be interesting. As you can see, we've still got some flooding going on. I've just kind of been ignoring this. It's not really impacting very much. Maybe our landfills aren't too happy about it, but yeah, I'm really not sure why it's doing that. But anyway, what else have we got here? So we've got another university campus area. Ships are unlocked now as well. Some policies, university paths, and we've unlocked the eco water treatment plant, football stadium, and harbor. I don't really know if we're going to do anything with harbors just yet. We could. You know, we've got this whole area that is designed literally to be a harbor. Looks like these people are not too happy about that polluted water. Yeah, I was hoping it would spread this way, but we weren't quite that lucky. Yeah, so good progress being made. We've seen this area come up a little bit. A little bit slower to develop than I thought it would be. Still struggling a bit to gain population. Unemployment 8% right now. I don't really think it's going to be feasible for us to unlock that Capitol building and oppression office legitimately with that ridiculous 50% unemployment requirement. I'm not really sure how we do that without just completely destroying our city and cheesing it. So yeah, I'll have to look into a way to get that. Another way, there's not another one on the workshop that doesn't have that requirement, so we kind of have to deal with it. But yeah, I think that's probably going to do it for this episode. We'll see. Maybe, you know, I'll cut this part and add something else if we've got more time. But at this point, I kind of just want to get it out. So next episode, we'll do the water treatment plant. We'll do the tram. Car barns, didn't get to that today. We'll do that next time. And we'll work on another industrial area over here. It's going to be our plan. And of course, we can start filling in this area bit by bit. I did unlock some new buildings, and I've got some museums and stuff that we can place down, so that'll be fun as well. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you're excited about the master plan and how it's starting to come together. It's still a bit weird right now because we haven't developed this area at all. It's very much a planned area, which is okay, I think. I like the way that the rest of the city is filling in. I did some work with our building themes, so hopefully things will be a little bit more coherent. Did get some new buildings added in. We'll see how that shapes up. And then there's always stuff to take care of, you know, parks and services. That kind of stuff seems to be cropping up now and then, so we'll look and see what needs fixing in the next episode. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.